welcome to another episode of Head First with Dr. Hill. Today's guest is Wendi Michelle, who is a consummate entrepreneur, health professional, wellness professional, biohacker. I'm not sure what Wendi doesn't do. So that's a very low-key intro. No pressure at all.
No.
Wendy's one of the founding partners, one of the founding members of Next Health, a alternative next-generation wellness center in West Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And you do all kinds of interesting manipulations on people's bodies. Most of my staff's been over there, I hear, but I haven't yet made it over there, so we may pick your brain a little bit.
Cool.
But Wendi, why don't you start by telling us who you are, how'd you end up in this wellness space, what kind of things are you involved with?
Sure. So I started in fitness, actually. I kind of took the route into where I am now via the fitness, bodybuilding, supplementation industry.
Were you like on stage posing? And
I did that.
Did you?
I did that. Well, not bodybuilding. I was a fitness competitor, so it's a different kind of posing.
Different kind of posing?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah,
okay.
No biceps, really. So,
all right.
So I did that. I was a personal trainer and nutrition coach right out of high school. So gosh, I don't really even remember a time in my life where I wasn't doing things like that, because even previous to it being a career, I was doing it in high school, and I just always loved the gym. I think it's cool to be strong. So I was fascinated by that, and I easily would say that I've been, I guess now what I know is this health hacking, biohacking terminology, probably way back then.
Okay.
I think exercise and diet very much is exactly that. You know, when you realize that when you incorporate certain foods and certain movement, you can, shape your body a certain way, or you can, be smarter.
Sure.
That was just kind of like the bread and butter of my life. It was really a passion. It wasn't my career full-time. Full-time, I was a corporate executive for an insurance agency. I did risk management and helped people to read their contracts, mitigate risk, make sure that they weren't taking on any liability that they didn't need to have. So I was interpreting, things like that. So that was my by day, and by night I was doing the fitness stuff.
So why did you, or what precipitated a leap from the corporate world working for somebody else to doing your own? I mean, I know several different entrepreneurial type things you're involved with. So what facilitated, I mean, that leap's a hard leap, going from working for somebody else to working for yourself. And I've seen you launch multiple projects. So these are all leaps. What gave you the first push?
The first push was thanks to the fitness industry and being just overall interested in wellness. In the process, I got very sick and realized that I really didn't know as much as I thought I did about health. And once that was a reality for me and I had to come face to face with that, I got furious about a lot of things in the industry. I saw a lot of gaps in the health industry as a whole, also in the fitness industry and the food industry. There was things that just infuriated me, and I was very insistent upon getting better so that I could spend the rest of my life making sure that people who maybe weren't as, I guess, devoted and dedicated to getting past an illness like that, I at least was a voice for them. So I ended up finding out after years that I had late-stage Lyme disease, and it had gone neurological. So I was having seizures, and I was having had paralysis via neuralgia. I just couldn't stand for long periods of time. So I was on crazy amounts of medication, and that was the only medicine that I knew. And when my eyes were open to all of the alternatives, new science, but also things that had been around forever, I was just furious that those weren't, common conversations with people who are very sick.
Yeah,
so,
you weren't given that option.
No.
It was like, here's the one drug that works to suppress the spirochetes, and let's hope it works for you. Is that was sort of the approach?
Yeah, well, that was down the road. First, they were just like, well, we don't know why you can't walk, so here's some Oxycontin and some Percocet and some Klonopin and some, you name it. It was in my bag, and that was the only option that I had. And then when I went into the alternative options, then I learned about traditional Chinese medicine and homeopathy and IV therapy and all the other things that really weren't that strange. And once I did get better, that's when I kind of made the leap out of the corporate environment and decided that it was time to go make sure that people were educated about this stuff and at least knew that there were other options that weren't necessarily even super expensive. So I literally gave everything I owned away. I drove my car back to the bank and I quit my job and I moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and I grabbed a car off Craigslist, and if it didn't fit in the car, it didn't go.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I didn't want anything to prevent the time I was able to give. So wherever there was people to talk to, wherever there was an ability to share what I had learned, and empower other people, I didn't want to have to do it in order to pay my bills. I really wanted just to give it away.
It's a very sort of monastic, the sacrifice of the worldly trappings so you can pursue the calling. It's interesting.
Yeah, it was very freeing too. It was a really awesome experience.
That sounds wonderful. It's unfortunate you sort of had to be pushed into that, but it's wonderful that you got to that as the opportunity, not simply a crisis.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what made the biggest impact on the late stage Lyme, on the neuralgia and those sorts of things? What actually helped the most, do you think?
Ozone. Ozone via intravenous ozone. I did a lot of high dose vitamin C IV therapy.
Okay.
Those seem to really kind of crack the shell, I guess, of the entire journey. Neuropeptide shots.
Oh, interesting.
I had a couple neuropeptide shots. One of them was called a vasoimmunopeptide, and that one actually immediately interrupted the neuralgia. I went home, went to sleep, woke up, and I could stand. Wow. And I was like,
was it a mix of peptides or was it a specific peptide?
It was one specific peptide.
I haven't heard of that one. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
What's the theory behind ozone? Is it killing bad stuff? Is it decreasing inflammation? What is ozone doing? Okay.
Yeah, all of it. I mean, the list is pages long of what they've found it to be capable of doing, but everything you just mentioned from eradicating bacteria and parasites even, but also decrease in inflammation and just giving the immune system an ability to do what it was created to do.
Interesting. Now, is ozone naturally occurring in the body? It's not, is it? So it's probably interacting with like nitric oxide and those sorts of processes, of those gas signaling molecules?
Exactly.
Okay, interesting. All right, so you sorted yourself out and you found this new calling, and you were this itinerant biohacker lecturing on what people might want to do and find ways to improve their health. This sounds sort of like what we do, which is giving you more tools, more options, and it's about the education and the sort of demystifying of a very complicated space.
Yeah.
What happened then? Like, you obviously didn't travel the world in your little beat-up Craigslist car for the next 10 years, because here you are in Los Angeles. So what was the next step in the journey?
So in Nashville, I did a lot of health coaching for some of the more difficult demographics. So a lot of musicians I did health coaching for, because a lot of times we have this idea of fitness and health overall, that if you don't follow all the rules, then you're out. Like, it's just not going to work. And, for these people, their career was not being able to sleep, normally, probably not eating really well, probably maybe engaging in, drugs and alcohol. So I thought, well, you
mean musicians aren't early to bed, early to rise, eating perfectly, body's a temple? I'm shocked.
I know. I was too. But that's what happens when you move to Nashville. You learn all kinds of things. So no, but I just was so passionate about giving people just the truth that I'm like, I'll walk to that side of the street. They're not going to come to my side, because that means the end of their career. So no matter what advice I give them, they're not going to be able to do it for long. They're not going to be able to sustain it. So
full adherence.
Exactly. Yeah. So I was like, I'll go to their side of the street. I'll meet them where they're at, and let's see what happens. And that's really where all of the best stuff, the coolest things happen, because I was able to bring to them opportunities to kind of manage their environment. They can't change it because it's their career, but we can manage the environment around them, which is, I think, the funnest stuff about biohacking, is bringing the environment to the extent at which you can control it, plugging little things in here and there. So that turned into, somebody heard me speak someplace, and that turned into a published book, and what's
the book? Let's give you a plug.
It's called Effortless Real Food.
Effortless Real Food?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then some of the food I was making for my clients on the road, they were like, "This is really awesome, Wendi, but we can't find it except for when we're hanging out with you." So I decided to make them into nutrition bars. Not like we need any more nutrition bars on the market.
I think I've had some of your nutrition bars.
You have.
And they're super yummy. They're super yummy. So what do they call it? I'm blanking on the name of the...
The company's called Hoola.
Hoola, H-O-O-L-A.
Hoola. And the names of the bars are Go, Be Happy.
Oh, that's great. I've only seen one of them. I didn't know it was.
Yeah, Go Be
all
Happy.
three. That's
So,
great.
yeah, Go has energy, an energy element, and it has green tea extract, and Be has lemon balm extract, and Happy has cacao because, PEA.
I've had the Bee. It's delightful.
Yeah.
It's light. It's not too heavy. It's not too much of a bar. But it's also doesn't leave you, with a crash. So I'm quite pleased by it.
So I was thank you. I appreciate that. I was making those for people on the road, and they wanted them more often. So I was in Arizona where my family is, and my business partner and I there, we kind of rounded it up, turned it into something, and that brought me out to LA, where I met up with a group of people about the bars specifically, and in the process of that, other food products became kind of like a vision, and now they are a reality.
So you have more Hoola products, or is the Hoola just the bars?
Hoola is just the bars,
Okay.
and then I have a new type of dip coming out. It's a snack dip called Hummish.
Hummish.
Yeah, it's not quite hummus. It's Hummish.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is it? Is it chickpea based? What is it?
Nope.
Okay.
It's actually almond based.
Ah, interesting.
And I don't use tahini or chickpeas.
So you avoid the legumes, and therefore it's safe for primal and paleo.
Exactly.
And, okay.
Yes.
And it's less of a carb hit, less of an less of an inflammatory marker booster.
Yep, exactly. And it's minimally processed, and there's very few ingredients. So people can't believe the ingredients when they taste it. They're like, I don't understand how that happened.
That's great. That's great. The secret sauce, literally in this case.
Exactly.
All right. So you've established starting your food empire. And what's the next step in the Wendi journey?
So Next Health is, a huge passion project of mine. I absolutely love the opportunities that I have there to develop and bring in new technology, which is a lot of how actually you and I met, is me doing research on bringing stuff to people that maybe someone might think is only available to like the upper echelon, and going, no, like if this stuff was available to me and I just had to go looking for it, then let me do the footwork for other people, go find the best of the best. And now I have a place to house it and bring it all in. And so I plan to do that forever. I want to always have the opportunity to find the best of the best and bring it into a retail location where people are just, walking by, going to the store, and, oh, look at that. Why does he have an IV in his arm? That's weird. And it really does prompt conversation, and it allows us to educate people, but also give them a safe environment to explore other options besides what they grew up with.
So IV in your arm, this is at Next Health.
Yes.
Can you say more about what the company is, what kind of things you guys do there, what kind of clients you have?
Sure. So the demographic is all over the board.
Okay.
We see all different age ranges. We do cryotherapy, so whole body cryotherapy we do there, which is a lot of fun. That's kind of like the gateway,
Sure.
So where people do experience, for sure it helps with pain and inflammation, which, that drives everything from how you're able to think, how you feel. Bringing down that inflammation is key. And then in addition to that, people who have like anxiety and depression and are struggling with sleep, they find that to be some of the best.
With cryotherapy?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. One thing that I've heard across the board from almost everybody who's done it is that they have not slept that good in years.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder why that is. Do you have a sense of what's happening in sleep? Is it reducing just inflammatory markers, and so you're going to a deeper sleep, or?
It's all theory. I have theories, but because of the profound, reduction in inflammatory markers, it's a systemic response as well. So it also stimulates the immune system. So I feel like what it does in the vasoconstriction is it kind of wakes everything up. And so if there's been like some bacteria like hanging out, maybe a little virus here or there, or maybe just chronic stress that they have just been ignoring for a while, suddenly the body's like, hey, we actually see that you're not taking care of yourself anymore now. Like, it's time to sleep, because that's typically what happens when you have a cold or a flu. All you want to do is close your eyes and go to sleep, because that's when the body can repair. So I feel like in cryotherapy, the body wakes up, and then once they get home and they actually can rest, the body's like, oh, good. Now we can actually do what we need to do.
That's interesting. So the gateway is cryotherapy.
Yes.
What other sorts of things do folks engage in?
IV therapy.
Okay.
IV therapy is high-dose vitamins delivered intravenously. So while people are like, I'm so afraid of needles, or it's still something that people aren't really sure of, but as soon as they try it, they realize it's so worth it. It's so effective at just delivering more of the nutrients, bypassing the gut, which we all know is
So,
an issue for
yeah.
just about everybody. So it's not something that you have to do forever, but it sure does boost the body's ability to kind of get those nutrients into the cell and and bypass like the supplementation, and even our food doesn't have enough nutrients in it to
Right.
get us to levels that we need to be.
And of course,
to be
food's going
optimal.
through first pass metabolism. So it's not, even if you had, if you're eating nothing but honeycomb or other,
Right.
high B things, you're still not getting the same concentration that you would if you bypass the gut
Yep.
lining. So,
Exactly. So, and then some fun things, they just, pass the blood-brain barrier. So, of course, I have to throw those in. So, we have different cocktails for different goals, which is pretty fun. It helps to introduce the idea that medicine or proactive wellness can be very unique. It doesn't have
Okay.
to be, a box treatment like, oh, I always have to take this one antibiotic. What most people are used to, they come in and they realize there's an opportunity to really individualize their care, which is very empowering to them.
Sure. One of the things that you may have noticed at where I work at Peak Brain is that we're trying to switch the perspective from illness or even a fix to more of a fitness, where you have control and responsibility and ability to change your body, your brain. And so why not engage with those resources? I imagine in Next Health, you have a lot of this, people not simply trying to use traditional medicine to fix a specific problem, but are trying to, biohack, trying to take control, have more agency over their health, over their
Yep.
trajectories. Is that true across all ages? Are you seeing elders, young people, millennials? Is it really across the board in terms of who wants to engage with these next generation health modifiers? Or
Yes, I would say it's more of a mindset than it is an age.
okay.
For sure, there's a larger collection of that mindset in the millennial age group, where they've already seen family members go through something, and
Yeah.
and they feel like there's other options, or at least if there are any other options, they want to explore them. They don't really want to just follow suit. And I think that's kind of the mentality overall, where they're not really interested in following suit with how we do just about anything. And I love that. I love the idea that all of what's been just, oh, well, that's just the way it is being challenged now. And that's how I've always lived. So I love it when people come in and are just excited about trying something different and empowering themselves to be optimized and beyond just some of them actually do have some things that they're dealing with regardless of age, but they're
Sure.
really just curious what feeling good feels like. And I always tell them, I don't think that we've even scratched the surface of human potential, and
Sure.
it's not really far-fetched. So if we can just get to like the next level, then I think we're going to be in a place where we can see like the sky is the limit. And that's really exciting to that particular demographic. But we see, even people in there that are retired coming in and wanting to try cryo and to try the IVs and to experience all the different things that we have there to offer.
That's wonderful. So you've done a lot of things. You're pretty far afield in terms of you're biohacking on yourself. You're creating products and businesses around essentially empowered choice around maximizing your health. What is your daily routine like? Are you practicing what you preach? I mean, I'm definitely guilty of never quite taking as much care of my own brain as I help my clients do.
Yeah.
Who shaves the barber kind of thing. But what is your routine like? Are you running from the moment you get up until the moment you collapse? Do you have a good work-life balance? It sounds like you made some structural changes when you left the more corporate world.
Yeah.
Has that intention carried through?
Yes, and it's a challenge, especially with, being an entrepreneur and having way too many projects and having especially way too many ideas. It's a challenge to maintain some kind of structure or any structure at all. So what I've had to learn how to do is to maintain flexibility, and that just promising or agreeing with myself that there will be a moment of, meditation in the day. And it doesn't matter when. I just need to always be very present and aware to know this is the time to step away and to do that. I would love it if it was first thing in the morning, but sometimes I'm not even going to bed until 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, just because that's just that's just the nature of the beast. Sometimes you just, I'm not recommending that. I'm not saying that's how to do it.
Right.
But it is the nature of the beast. So on that day, I can't get up and follow suit. And I think one of the traps we get into is that, oh, well, if I if I eat bad now, then the whole rest of the day is blown. I'm just going to have to eat all the things that are not good for me.
Sure.
And we do that across the board with all things in life. So,
oh, it's a cheat day because I had sugar at
Yes.
9 a.m. I guess I could have sugar all day long.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So instead of saying I'm going to get up and do these things every day, regardless, and then feeling like I've let myself down before the day has even started, I just don't, that's for me is not mentally healthy.
Okay.
What's mentally healthy for me is to make sure that I get in exercise every day, some form of it, whether it's just a walk around the block or a quick like Tabata sprint on the treadmill, or it's
Tabata? What is that?
Tabata is a way of doing endurance training. So
Okay.
it's 20 seconds of full on, like basically just sprinting, and then 10 seconds of nothing,
Oh.
and going back and forth between the two.
I reminds me of what we used to do in cross country or track training in high school. We'd sprint between telephone poles and walk between telephone poles. So
Yeah.
sprint, walk, sprint, walk, sprint, walk. And it was much more vigorous than simply running straight out.
Yeah, your mitochondria really like that.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay.
the push is really key. Pushing the body like that, and then showing it or confirming for it that you're going to let it rest. That push and rest and push and rest, done over the course of 10 minutes, 12 minutes or so. I can do that every day, at least some point. So I make sure I exercise, make sure that I have some meditation prayer time, make sure that I eat really, really well.
Okay.
I think that's probably the most important thing that I do have the most control over. And if I can't eat something awesome, it's fasting day,
Okay.
because I think it's better to spend that time fasting and letting the body kind of clean itself up,
Sure.
which it will do.
Yeah,
it's so
absolutely.
awesome. But then to choose an alternate source of who knows what. I mean, I'm in the food industry. I know what they're putting in the food.
Yeah. And what nonsense ends up in there.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. I read a study a couple of weeks ago that suggests even a 24-hour fast causes pancreatic cells in diabetics who are insulin dependent. 24-hour fast causes non-beta islet cells to convert into beta islet cells and start producing insulin.
Yeah.
Even folks that are purely insulin, injecting insulin every single day, they think they're, full-blown diabetics. Those folks fasting for a day seems to trigger new cell growth in insulin-producing cells. So
Yeah.
that's a fairly that violates our idea about what these things are. And that, I think, is to some extent the space you and I both work in, which is on that edge of what might be known and what is not really known. I mean, we end up working. I joke sometimes that we're in the space of what is plausible. Not necessarily deterministic. Oh, here's some data about your body, your brain. Okay, that's interesting. It might mean this. And I always pull back about over interpreting. It's really there's lots of conflicting information about what a genetic SNP means or what cholesterol means or anything else.
Yes.
And so I'm always, that's interesting, but let's avoid drawing too many conclusions about what we're seeing. Even, in the space I work, which is QEEG and brain mapping, it's always like, okay, this pattern might mean this. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
And you're doing a lot of, I imagine, metabolic assessments and markers and things as well. So, and those are probably, again, informative, but not necessarily deterministic. Is that the space you're working in as well?
Yes, for sure. Because one thing that I was thinking as you were talking about kind of how your approach is, and I noticed this the first couple times that we worked together, is, the placebo effect works in reverse as well. So when you want it to be somebody to go, oh yeah, I actually do feel better. Imagine that. It also works in reverse. So when you make suggestions, or even if the labs are diagnostic and it's proven,
Ironclad, yeah.
my goodness, like you have to be very careful about how you share that information, because that placebo effect can literally take that into a whole other negative spiral.
The nocebo effect, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that it's really important to not draw specific conclusions, and more so, I'm really passionate about helping people stop Googling things and start listening to themselves, and go back to what just our innate intelligence, and go and sitting either in the discomfort or sitting in the not knowing for a minute, for crazy skills like problem solving. I know Siri is awesome, I love her too, but it does disrupt our natural ability to draw a conclusion and say, actually that I know everybody else is doing that, but that doesn't really feel good for me. So from a metabolic standpoint, we do genetic testing. So we look at the genetic test that we get from a lab in San Diego, specifically looking at genetics for, how best to eat for the way they're designed and how to exercise for how they're designed. And I love that stuff because it gives them an opportunity to have to sit in an unknown and make a decision for themselves, which is probably one of the most powerful things you can give to a human being.
Absolutely, yeah. So we really do work in the same space, but here's some data. Let us try to demystify it for you as much as is possible. And then this presents some opportunities maybe for going after things and manipulating them. I really forget how we first talked about your brain. Was I very cautious about interpreting things? Okay, good.
And I totally noticed because that's actually how when I was really sick and I was being treated by the naturopathic center that I went to, they would never tell me about how I might feel or what I should expect. They just said, have a great night. And then I would go home and have fevers and all this crazy stuff as my body was fighting off this bacteria. And it never really frightened me. I obviously had questions the next day, but I loved how they let me sit in that. And that was really a gift. And I will never forget that. And so I definitely noticed you doing the same thing. And probably for the first time in maybe 10 years, going to Peak Brain is the one time I intentionally didn't research anything or try to understand it. I just wanted to go and just experience it.
Oh, interesting.
Without the study, which I still feel super dumb when I'm there because I'm like, why is it happening like this? And I do want to know.
And you hear all the techs talk to me about different brain waves.
Yes, and I so want to understand it, but at the same time, there's really something sweet about going someplace and just, I guess, I know it's not magic.
It's not magic.
But it feels like it because
sometimes.
It just seems too easy.
Yeah, you aren't doing anything, right? I mean, it's just low key.
Not doing anything.
Yeah, just sitting there enjoying it.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
So awesome.
That's great. It also must be nice for you to, I mean, looking at your history, you have been sort of in charge, if you will, to some extent of providing services or expanding, resources. It must be kind of nice to not have to be in charge and not have to assess intellectually everything you're engaging with.
Yes.
I mean, I appreciate the trust that you're giving me and giving Peak Brain. But my guess is part of the benefit for you is being the person who's receiving care and support and not having to, be the person on the cutting edge of figuring everything else out yourself right then.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's a lesson in that even for me. It's really important for me when I'm giving advice to somebody else to at least have experienced it myself or to be currently practicing, like we were just talking about, my daily routines. What does that look like? And do I practice what I preach? In that sense, for me, I am constantly telling, I would say primarily women who are, powerful and intelligent and they can take care of things about how to be a girl and how important it is to be taken care of and how important it is to trust people and let people come in, create a village, a community. That stuff is just so important. And so if I don't ever do that in my own life, if I don't intentionally engage that way, then I really have no grounds to speak that over anybody else. So I try to find spots where I feel like it's safe to do that. And it's always truly nice when I can just go, okay, good, I'm safe here. I don't have to know. I want to know, but I'm not even going to look. And so it is as much a learning experience for me as it is therapy because it's great. Gives me a voice and be like, no, I know it's hard, but I do it all the time.
And I would hope, as you know, we remap your brain every 20 or so sessions. And so we've shown you more data about your brain as you go through the process and as you change. I imagine even without being a neuroscientist, that feels like you're getting valid data and things are, it's illuminating without even the sort of deep knowledge that may be required to choose what we do to your brain. Yeah. We always provide, data back to clients. So you probably drink up the data. Yeah,
I love it. And I feel like at some point I really do want to just come hang out and just watch everything.
That's great.
Because it's just so the brain is a passion of mine right now. I just am fascinated by it. And when I have the mental wherewithal to wrap my mind around it, that is what I want to spend some time on, especially like the nootropics and stuff we've talked about. And how some people are doing it, they're kind of dabbling in some scary stuff, and then some of it is just like, wow, that really? Just that like amino acid is going to
That's
do
right.
that? Crazy.
Or that peptide, or that precursor to some enzyme or some neurotransmitter. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you. I find the nootropic space a little frightening. It's one of the reasons I helped Chris Thompson create True Brain initially, is because, this is over 4 years ago now, as I looked at the nootropic space and I was writing my dissertation, and I couldn't figure out, and I had taken courses in psychopharmacology and pharmacokinetics and dynamics and everything else, and I could not figure out, of all the marketed nootropics, what was likely to work, why they worked, what was smart, what was safe. And so I ended up doing that research to find like a basic stack. But even now, I cringe at 90% of the marketing, the biz dev, the messaging around these substances called nootropics. For folks that haven't heard the term before, nootropics are things that theoretically, the strict definition, improve brain health without side effect, which really does rule out most of the things that are labeled nootropics from a marketing sense. Things like caffeine, things like modafinil, which is absolutely not a nootropic. I don't know if I told you, I took modafinil just over 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago.
Really?
Prescribed 21 days, single dose every morning. And on the 21st day, I woke up with head to toe hives.
Oh my
and
gosh.
for the next 6 weeks, I had pressure urticaria. I was in the ER 3 times, urgent care 3 times, massive histamine immune response. They basically barely caught it before it turned into Stephen Johnson syndrome, and I had, skin sloughing. So I had a massive histamine problem because of this, what is considered by Silicon Valley types anyways, a nootropic. It's not a nootropic, but it's getting a lot of press these days, through folks like Dave Asprey and other, prolific publishing biohackers. They're really hot on modafinil, and I'm very much an isolated voice in the field or the space of biohacking, saying, look, modafinil is the last thing you want to try, because it's unless you have narcolepsy or you work third shift or some other sleep problem, then it's indicated, but not for attention. So
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I always appreciate hearing that stuff, because we do get a lot of those questions over at Next Health, where I'll sit down with somebody just for a general consultation, and they're coming in looking to optimize performance, and they came in because they heard about our brain IV and they want to experience that, and they were like, what else do you have? Like, what else can you tell me? And I always tell them, if there's side effects, it is not something that's beneficial to you. No matter what the instant gratification result is, if you're here to optimize, then my advice is that's not going to optimize you.
Right. And also, folks that are trying to boost their performance above baseline, it's a different cost-benefit analysis than if somebody's trying to fix an illness or fix an infirmity or some deficit. Then you may need to tolerate some side effects on the way to healing, on the way to shoring up a deficit it's costing you something. But if you're already healthy, be it young or old, and trying to boost that health, that performance, I think the threshold for tolerating side effect, for downsides, should be 0. Only go after things that are going to slightly boost and move. Because a small performance improvement, if you're already healthy, is massively subjectively felt. I mean, you get a big, big push.
Yes.
So,
which I experienced at Peak Brain, by the way.
Oh, thank you. That's nice to hear.
And I honestly tell everybody that. It's so true. And I got things from it that I wasn't anticipating. And I think that's what's
things I didn't tell you about?
Things you just intentionally did not tell me to expect or that I would notice.
Tell us what happened in the first month or two, because you've been doing it for a while now, but I forget what your first experience was.
So initially, I was just primarily coming to optimize, also to understand it, because it's something that I'd love to have for people at Next Health and down the road. And I think the first or second time I actually had a little bit of like emotion, which I'm carefully speaking about this, because it's not to be negative. It actually was a great experience, because everything in my life moves so fast that I just kind of became numb.
Oh, okay.
So there really wasn't any, it's
tiny bit shut down.
You'd think it'd be great to have no ups and downs, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not healthy to be numb.
Right.
And so first I was mad. I had like anger after one session, and while that should have been frustrating, or to me it was like, oh yeah, it occurred to me I didn't remember the last time I really felt angry. And then we made some adjustments and stuff, which I also love how you and your staff are so up on the feedback, and it's not just like, oh, here's another person. It's really very individualized, and so that's super helpful. But then I would say 6 sessions into it, there was one day where I didn't I didn't want to go to sleep because I didn't want to experience anything else but how I felt that day. And I wanted to bottle that because I thought if I could put this in a package, I would be a billionaire. Like, this is incredible. And how I always thought you'd have to be very caffeinated and like very hyped up to be, laser focused. But it was the strangest thing. It was like I had the most productive day to this day that I've ever had.
Yep.
And I was like on the beach, just like, I was like, oh, this is so, like, my body was just like so relaxed and there was no tension. And how I had that jaw thing.
Tension, yeah.
And I had none of that going on. My body was like so relaxed, like I was on vacation, but my mind was like what I thought I'd probably have to use drugs for, honestly. I have never experienced something like that before. And from that moment on, I'm like,
training.
How do I get that all the time?
We've done a little bit of that, and you haven't had quite as dramatic a result since. It happens sometimes where the first time a protocol really hits, it's like, oh my God, because it feels so different.
Yes.
And then it's a little less dramatic because your brain's adjusting to the experience and learning to reproduce it. Yeah, that was left side training for you.
Yeah.
And generally left side training in neurofeedback produces fewer errors of omission for attention. You grasp, the alerting of your attention is just on. Where right side training tends to make you more self-controlled, so you're less reactive. And so we've actually done a lot of both with you, of course. And we often do a lot of tweaking here, tweaking there, and gradually building you up over time. So that's wonderful.
One thing I did notice is when the last couple months have just been crazy, and I didn't get to come in for probably about 2-3 weeks, that I felt. So even though I may not feel like that extent of, oh my gosh, I need this all the time, I want this in a bottle, I did notice it on the flip side, whereas I didn't realize how much it was helping me until I wasn't utilizing it.
Right. We haven't done quite enough training with you, I think, to make everything stick. With neurofeedback, there tends to be this evaluative process where we try a protocol, see how it works for you, do a bunch of it to really build an effect, and then we often shift gears based on what people want. But if you stick with a protocol for enough time, then the resource becomes lasting. I think we did do some more left side training with you, and it actually made you a little too wired. We may have gone a little far at one point and pulled back, which can happen. It's not a big deal.
Yes.
But it's, again, we're working in this space where we have to balance what is known, what is unknown, what is possible, what is intuited. Which is not a very comfortable place for a scientist to be. So I have to, for me, I have to put down the linear mind sometimes and, sit there and be a good listener. I joke these days that while I'm not a therapist, the role that I play therapeutically is like a bartender. I'm a good listener. I have some good stories. I might have some good advice, but don't rely on me for your psychological well-being.
Right.
I have specific skills. They're not making a nice drink. They're, of course, looking at your brain map or something. But, when you're working with these deep, almost intimate things in people's resources, their experiences, it's an interesting, vulnerability your clients, this is true for you as well, that clients have to you as somebody who's looking at their, data, their secrets. And sometimes, I probably did this with you, I can look at a brain map and go, oh, I see this and this and this. That's true, huh? And you're like, wait, how did you know that? And I imagine the same is true when you're looking at homocysteine and estrogen, testosterone, and all these other biomarkers. You can probably sketch a picture of the person from their data, which is a fairly intimate experience with a health coach to have that awareness. Oh wait, what's going on inside my body or my brain? That's a little strange.
Yeah, it's strange, and it's also very comforting. Even we have an in-body scanner, which is a scale, essentially, but it measures the composition of the body. So whatever the total weight is, we can also tell within that weight what of it is mass, fat mass, and what is muscle mass and water.
Water mass, yeah.
And just that moment is a very vulnerable moment, and being able to help them understand things that they haven't been able to figure out before seems like such a simple thing. Well, come over and stand on the scale. But when you look at it like that, I think that's why people feel brushed aside. But when you approach that knowing that this is an opportunity to really help somebody get in tune with their body, it looks very simple, so it's non-threatening, but it can really provide like drastic benefits for them. And all it was a scale.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So something you mentioned earlier, your brain cocktail. I'm still curious. I know we've mentioned it. We talked about it off air a couple times, but I've never heard what is in it. At least the things you want to share. I'm curious what kind of brain things you're doing.
Yeah. So it is our most popular IV.
It is? Interesting.
Say. I have used it several times, and I know I know placebo effect, and I didn't plan to feel anything from it because it's not really designed for you to feel something. I always joke with patients when they say, well, I don't feel anything. I'm like, well, do you feel your cells right now?
Yeah.
Can you feel them? Because if you can't feel your cells, then that doesn't mean that there's not things happening there. It just means that they haven't reached the extent at which, it's, you can feel it in the moment. So anyway, I definitely get tremendous benefits from it. It starts out with a Myers cocktail, which is kind of the standard in IV therapy.
Yep, banana bag.
Yes, banana. Well, it has vitamin C, magnesium, calcium, all of the B vitamins, and multi-trace, so trace minerals.
Okay.
And then in that we add acetyl L-carnitine.
Oh, nice. For cellular energy, from a mitochondrial sort of fuel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Some glycine.
Okay. As an amino acid, produces GABA, other neurotransmitters.
Yes. Some glutamine.
Okay. So producing glutamate, muscle fibers.
Some taurine.
Great B vitamin substrate. Beautiful.
Yep. And throwing all those in together, and they're just dosed in a very specific way, and some zinc as well.
Is that for immune, or is there a brain implication there?
It helps. It's about the pathways and being a precursor and helping with the movement.
So avoiding sort of rate limiting conversion steps.
Exactly.
Look at that. I won't give any of your secrets away, but that's interesting.
Yes, it's all like there is a method to all of my madness.
That's such reassuring. That's great. That's great. Methodological madness is the kind of, I think, madness to have.
Yes.
That's great. So huge amount of information so far, Wendi. I'm curious, as an entrepreneur, we're sort of like sharks. We can't hold still or we die. What are you aiming towards? What are the next projects? You mentioned Hummish. I assume you have a few other products in production, maybe more books, maybe, I don't know what you're doing these days. So,
Yeah. So I have multiple food projects happening right now.
Okay.
Hummish is like the big deal. I'm leaving here and heading off to manufacturing. So that is like on the forefront. I also have another line of snack type things, kind of like bars of sorts that I'm working on as well. Working on some private labeling projects. So people who already have a brand and they just want to expand on their brand and bring in quality food, because it really runs alongside everything else. That if somebody's doing something with health and wellness, if they haven't brought in food or talked about food or offering some kind of good food product in addition to whatever they're doing, it's time to do it.
Sure.
I formulate for larger corporations, people who are already on the shelf and have a presence. I go in and reformulate or formulate for them so that they
create new products, essentially.
Exactly. Or even products that are just not doing as well as they would like them to, or they want to truly make it healthy because right now it's not so healthy. I can
really, if it has the word natural on the package, it doesn't mean it's not good for you.
No, I know. I'm learning so many things, and yes, that is true. So, and then also just as as we learn more things about some foods. I mean, look at what happened with butter.
Right.
That's just one example of hundreds where we are realizing that that's probably not the best choice. So if you want to stay on the market and you want to stay ahead of the game, you might have to reformulate and make sure that you're putting product into your food or putting ingredients into your product that are in line with what it is that you're teaching people. So there's lots of that in the works. And then I'm working on another book. I'm writing a book on fitness and just overall balance and really what fitness is from like a mobility and I guess to sum it up, it's more about your brain and your frame.
Okay.
And making sure that and how they work together, and also how some people are all about intellect and that's awesome, but then they're neglecting their body.
Sure.
And vice versa. So how to make sure that they all come together and why, but making it very digestible. So it's not like a tough read, but something very quick where people can apply it right away, and then daily opportunities. But like one new thing a day, and it'll just like a 365 days. So within a year, you've literally either adopted or at least tried 365 new ways.
Oh, that's great. Some practical action-based next action step things.
Yes,
that's great. That's wonderful.
A lot of biohacking in there.
I can't imagine why. That's
I know.
great. Yeah. That's wonderful.
Do some of those things in there too.
Very cool. So books, food. Do you have any time for anything besides business?
Yes, the beach.
The beach.
Yes.
Okay.
I love the beach. I always make sure to get outside and just do, fun things in fresh air. So I just want to be out in nature as much as possible, like barefoot as much as possible in nature. I play guitar. I love to learn languages. I love to read. So those are all the ways that I kind of unplug from the craziness of business.
You should come to Peak Brain's Friday night West African drumming instruction.
What?
We'll teach you how to do some Malinke rhythms if you want.
I'm in.
Nice. Not tomorrow. We're going to be in Tampa looking at a new location, but next week.
Okay.
So
good to know.
Great.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
So Wendi, where can folks find more about you? Where can they track you down? Where's Next Health? Where is Hummish going to be? Where are the Hoola Bars?
So probably the easiest spot would be wendymichelle.com. So Wendi with an I.
Okay.
wendymichelle.com has
easy.
all. If you scroll down the bottom, it literally has every project that I'm working on and clickable links.
Great.
Next Health. So if somebody is in Los Angeles or is visiting and wants to see the coolest cryo chamber ever, which it really is, come check it out and have a cryo session on me. Try it out for yourself and see if you don't sleep better or experience the endorphins, after putting yourself in, negative 165 degrees Fahrenheit. It's totally normal. Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to come try it.
Yeah, I will. I want to try the cryotherapy. I want to try the brain cocktail.
Yes. Yeah.
I have some other cool things that I've heard about over at Next Health that I'm interested in trying.
Yeah. So we're on Sunset Boulevard in Crescent Heights.
Okay.
Right next to Trader Joe's and under the Crunch Gym. The website for that, if you want to learn, if somebody wanted to learn more about what we do there, is next-health.com.
Hyphen, next hyphen.
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
We'll put the links in the show notes,
Perfect.
so you'll have that under the show. So that's great.
yeah, I'm there, and I'm also in the factory making magical foods.
With Oompa Loompas.
With Oompa Loompa, yep, exactly.
Have you rescued a tribe of like Willy Wonka? He rescued Oompa Loompas from slavery then to enslave them. That was the
I didn't even start the food products until I knew I would have a staff like that. So
That's great. That's great.
I did that.
Well, Wendi, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah,
it's been great to talk to you in a different setting.
Yeah.
And I've learned a few things about you, your products, and your vision, which I think is important. So, folks, thanks for listening. This has been another episode of Head First with Dr. Hill. My guest today is Wendi Michelle. And you can check her out at wendymichelle.com. That's Wendi with an I. And folks, take care of your brains, and we'll see you next time.